Andrew Urquhart with you on the program today, and hey, maybe it is a representation of my generation, but people talking with emojis, people using emojis to communicate something which, well, words are perfectly good for, but who's got time for that now? Look, I understand it if I'm getting a text from somebody that they may want to communicate their emotion as well as their words. But why on earth is this creeping into journalism? I'm not the only grumpy old person on this one. Well, Natasha Baulis from Maxim Institute, she joins me on the program. Natasha, kia ora. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here.
It has sort of become the way in which we communicate. And, well, an article that you wrote recently on this one, I presume that you haven't sent this on to Stuff to see if they wanted to publish it, because in some ways they are the target of the piece. Stuff in some of their articles, and some of them, okay, maybe they make sense because they're touchy-feely stories, but having people being able to say what emotion the story generates in them, I'm not sure what that has to do with journalism.
Yeah, it is a bit confusing. I'm also not sure what algorithm they're using to decide when to put the emojis there or not, because it's not on every one of their articles. I'd also be fascinated to know what they're doing with it when they receive that feedback from people.
It's all in a data system somewhere. It's sort of mapping,
it's all big data.
mapping who we are, exactly. And what is it in particular that annoys you? Because I mean, one of the things you say in your article, it seems that you'd be happier if there was more choice. You know, if we could do a slightly manic emoji or even a poop emoji, maybe that would be better to be able to communicate our feelings about the article.
Well, I think at least that would better express the range of emotional options that humans have at hand. You know, when we have 27 distinct emotional categories, 6 seems quite simplistic and a little bit arbitrary.
Yeah. Happy, sad, confused. You know, that's what we need to go with.
But I want to be able to at least pick more than 2 out of 6 emotions so that I can try to broaden my expression. Yeah. But also, I think that my emotions aren't the only thing that I'm responding to an article with. You know, I'd like to think that I'm also responding with my intellect, that I have some questions that arise out of it, that I'm weighing whether this is a good representation of the issue, whether there are other concerns, or whether, you know, what are the pros and cons. You know, there's lots of processes that the human brain goes through when you're reading something like an article, not just your emotional response.
I mean, is it a generational thing, do you think? Because some people will be thinking, oh gosh, who's got time for the comment section? Honestly, that's where angry old people rant. You know, that if I can just do a quick emoji and move on, like a lot of online journalism now tells you how much of your life you'll be wasting by reading it right at the top of the article. It's more important than the headline. People just need to emotionally react and move on, it seems. Do you think it is a generational thing?
I think partly. I think so. Alistair McIntyre writes a lot about the kind of the rise of emotivism, and this idea that we, you know, it's an ethical framework where it's not about justice or rationality. It's simply about things are good if they make you feel good, things are bad if they make you feel bad. The problem is when you have an article of the complexity, you know, the example I used was talking about a new stalking offence that the Labour Party is considering. They also tell the story of a really horrific stalking incident. There's some details from the Justice Minister. Where does, you know, which part of that am I putting my emoji to? You know, there's a lot of stuff happening in that article.
I mean, it's good that the legislation is going through. It's bad that it's taken so long. It's horrific that it needs to happen in the first place. Honestly, maybe there's a trapdoor. If you're not shocked and appalled at people being stalked, then the police are just going to knock on your door. That it's justice by emojis as to whether or not you're thinking the way that society tells you to think in that regard. I mean, this isn't just restricted to journalism. How we feel, how politicians make us feel, how we focus group every single policy and look on a billboard and that type of thing. Emotivism, our emotional reaction seems to dominate values in our society. I'm not sure I should totally blame Pixar, but perhaps that movie's got something to do with it. You know the one I mean.
Yeah, the one with all the little people in the heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling all the limits. And I think you make a really good point. You know, when we look at Obama, for instance, or even Jacinda, for the New Zealand context, you have these political figures that people feel really good about and really hopeful about. they pin all of their hopes for everything in their lives on that person can never hold up to all of that anticipation.
Yeah.
And then you have other people who, they might be quite good as political actors, but they don't really, they're not pretty enough, or they're not charismatic enough, or they're not tall enough, or whatever it happens to be. They just don't emotionally inspire us. Do we not vote for them because they don't make us feel great?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's certainly concerning. And I mean, this is something which has come up in the election, I suppose. And for a lot of people, it's great that places like Maxim, you're able to do a deep dive on policy analysis and all that sort of thing. A lot of people may be voting this year on what their favourite colour is. And look, those people have human rights. They get the same amount of votes as we do, and that's
the beauty of democracy.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it is, and we need to cope with that. However, is the genie out of the bottle on this one, do you think? Because of social media and the sort of society that we've become, these are just the cards we've got to play with now. It's all very well to say, hey, people should make decisions from a more intellectual point of view, but people are just lazy, stupid, and right. I mean, that's the first rule of social media, right?
Well, in Swahili, we used to say that, watu ni watu, people are just people.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a reality to that we do have to live with. Democracy is the best of many bad forms of government.
Yeah.
But I also think, the Stanford Business School study that I talk about in the article, it did demonstrate that how people are feeling on the day about things that are completely irrelevant to government influences their vote. I think that's a problem. But I also think that emotions are useful for how we experience the reality that's going on around us. And so there is actually a place to say, I'm feeling dissatisfied, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling scared. And to think about, why do I feel scared? Why do I feel hopeless or despondent about the future? Why am I worried at the moment? And if you can actually then kind of trace those emotions back to their material position or starting point, then you can start to think about, who should I vote for so that I don't feel despondent or frustrated or worried?
Exactly.
And I think that's the right place for emotions, is as a kind of starting point to then draw back and look at the reality around you and who's going to be best placed to actually do something about those problems that you're experiencing.
And we don't make the link so often. And, the bad news for the current government, of course, is if for example, the All Blacks don't do very well in the Rugby World Cup. It's not looking very good at all. And people making decisions, I feel angry, disappointed at the All Blacks, so I'm going to vote the government out. I mean, that's not necessarily a causal link. We should have better reasons for making our democratic decisions. But honestly, that's the way we're going with this one. Interested to know now. I mean, your article goes a little bit deeper than the shallow nature of morning radio. However, do you have are people allowed to rate the article from an emoji point of view at the bottom of your article? Are you giving the opportunity for people to express how your article makes them feel?
I mean, it's cheekily in the title of the article, but no. At the end of the day, I'm not so concerned about how you feel in response to the article. I'm more concerned about what you think about it.
Yeah, no, very good stuff indeed. And I would encourage people to go to maxim.org.nz to read the article, to have that emotional processing, I mean, I'm an external processor as well, to have that moment, to speak it out loud and, hey, but then also to process and to say, why is it that I'm feeling this way about the state of the country, about the policies of this government, about the election promises of some of the other political parties, and make an informed and prayerful vote, because it's not just an emoji reaction. We can react by the way in which we vote at the upcoming election. Natasha, thank you so much for the work that you do. Wonderful to chat with you on the program today. Thanks very much for joining us.